Everyone good?
Yeah.
3, 2, and like Rachel and I don't know. That's okay. So I'm recording right now. Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of American Shade. Tonight is a special night. We have the whole cast, almost the whole cast of the Black Unscripted. Thank you all for zooming in. Give yourself like a little clap. Like, you guys deserve some of that. So Reggi isn't here, but he's here in spirit. So shout outs to Reggi. But can we go around and just everyone say your name and just where you're from really quick, and then we're going to jump into this.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Dominique.
No, you should go ahead and start.
You just introduced Dominique.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Hardy. I'm the director of Black Unscripted, originally from Indianapolis, currently living in Atlanta.
And I'm Dominique Lewis. I'm a musician based out of Indianapolis, Indiana.
My name is Denise Chamberlain. I reside in Anderson, Indiana. I am a model and a vitiligo advocate.
My name is Farai Moyo. I'm originally from Zimbabwe, but I'm now based in Indianapolis, Indiana, and work for one of the local hospitals over here. I'm in the medical field. I'm a nurse.
Awesome. And I'm Brittany. I'm a writer. We're moving on. So Rachel, I know you've been asked this 1,000 times. I'm going to ask you just one more time, and it can be brief. Why did you want to do this film? And also, was there something that stuck out to you when you're editing the film?
So I think the idea for this came through just like life. Like there wasn't like one particular point where I was like, oh, this would be a good idea. So like, for instance, I felt like I would often have moments where people would assume that I liked certain things or that I listened to certain music, and I could tell it was because I was Black. So one particular instance that I think kind of got me on this idea of this film was I was working production for an NFL game, and I was one of the production assistants, and it was me and then maybe like 5 or 6 other people who all happened to be white, and they were talking about music, and this one girl was talking about a rapper. And so she like looks at everybody at the table and it's like, oh, do you guys know this song? And everybody's like, oh, we've never heard of this rapper or this song or anything. And then she looks at me and goes, oh, I know that you know this song and that you like it. And so it was like that moment of like, okay, actually, I don't listen to this rapper, but whatever. So it's just like instances like that where it kept happening over time. And so then I was like, this is a weird, maybe I should kind of explore this. So that was kind of, I guess, just over time, having those different situations pop up made me think about trying to do a documentary on this topic. And as far as editing, something that stuck out, like as far as like something somebody said, or
it could be anything, something someone said, maybe like how our stories all mesh together, anything.
I will say I saw a lot from you and Reggi in particular, like your stories that kind of played off of each other, because Reggi, like he speaks about being a Black man with blonde hair and white skin, and like whether or not he has privilege from having lighter skin. And then yours was touching on like colorism and having like darker complexion. So I think that probably was what stuck out most to me, was seeing your varying kind of perspectives of race and skin color, and whether or not, you know, you think people get privilege based off of skin tone.
Yeah, that's interesting. I saw that parallel too. And that's something that was cool. Like you said, people think that the Black community is one narrative for all of us. that's one reason why I wanted to do this project, is because you showcased 5 different narratives instead of 5 Black people talking about one thing, which I really liked. But then, yeah, go ahead.
So I was going to say, I think one part in particular where I was like, oh, that's interesting, was you were talking about the whole light skin versus dark skin. And I remember you making the comment of like, you know, if you're lighter skinned, you do have more privilege than darker skinned people. Like you may not have the same privilege of white people, but you do have more. And then in Reggi's interview, I asked him the question, like, do you think that your skin tone offers you any type of privilege? And he straight up was like, no, I don't think it offers me any privilege. The only thing I think that I get is the benefit of the doubt. So he was like, when people first see me, I think they offer me the benefit of the doubt. But then like maybe 5 minutes into seeing me and talking to me, they realize that I'm Black, and then I get treated the same way that everybody else does. So
that's very interesting. And I just want to know from a couple of people, why did you want to join on this project personally?
Me personally was to it was 2 factors. One, to share my side as far as growing up and different perspectives, like identity, to share that narrative. And the other part was to maybe gain some knowledge myself from, you know, you all. I've had some friends, you know, from different cultures, different places, different backgrounds, but to get to know you, you know, in this level, you're sharing some really deep things. And, you know, I know we all appreciate you, you know, sharing that side. I got to learn a lot about how you overcame so much, how you're still trying to overcome things. I will never understand, you know, some of your other perspectives, but it gave me a insight of somewhat of a walk of like what you went through. And like I think Rachel and Brittany, just kind of what y'all said, bringing us together. And it's not just one state of like what Black is, you know, it's these different levels. And I got to understand, you know, those other levels. And that in itself, I'm big on like culture, knowledge, just awareness. So that was really rewarding because it was genuine. I got to build relationships with y'all. Like we're on this call right now, and it's just genuine. It's nothing but love for each other. And we have this core like issue, subject matter, whatever you want to call it. But here we are coming together to discuss it. So that was the 2 things for me, just for my voice, my side, but to also understand y'all's too.
As far as me, I wanted to be a part because I think I was just really learning to love myself, coming into my own, trying to get used to my skin. So I think at that point, it was, hold on, this got me nervous.
Oh no, you're good.
You all
this is our space, girl.
Yeah. So it was just me, because I've only been out my makeup for 4 years. Of course, like I said, you know that I've been wearing it for 32 years. So really, it was like me finally coming out and actually want to interact with other people. Because it seemed like I didn't always try to stay in the background and just hurry up and do whatever I need to do. And this gave me the opportunity just to actually really open up.
Okay.
And then of course, learning you guys. I love meeting you guys. I love interacting with people.
Yeah.
So that's why I ended up wanting to be a part. And then of course, I got to be in a pool. I love being in water now. So
that's awesome.
That's me.
For me, on my part, like, you know, just echoing from what other people have already said, number one, was very educative on my part. I got to learn a lot of things that I did not know. Also be educative to a lot of individuals out there, not only in just the Black community, but also to other, like, other individuals from other races, like Ray said, other ethnicities and stuff like that. Because what this has done, it takes all different stories from just a few individuals, and it highlights basically how we feel, and how we some of the things that we experience, which hopefully will give a light to, and will give like a platform for others to go like, hey, you know what? I've never really thought about that. This is how this individual actually feels, when I say this, or, this is how actually it's being received. We're just a few, and, we are representing like, a lot of different, subjects, even just with, because for me, when I watched it at first, like, I pretty much came down tears, and that's very hard for me to do. Because, just seeing all those stories, seeing like, where everybody's coming from and stuff like that. And you can see that it's not just one individual talking, but it's an individual talking and representing a lot of like a whole bigger issue that's, where they're from, or like, what happened in their life. And I think it will be able to touch a lot of lives, a lot of individuals that will be able to relate to this. So
I totally agree with you. When I first watched the film, I was taken aback and really emotional with everyone's storyline. And specifically, one thing that stood out for me was, I think it was the end scene towards the end with Denise, and how happy you were to see the doll that looked like you. Like that moment, I got choked up. I was like, Lord, give me the tissues. And also something interesting, I was going to pose this question to you and Reggie, but something interesting that you said that's very important is you said family members would, poke fun at your skin, and that it was something that you would laugh off. But I think for the majority of the time you would internalize it and struggle with it by yourself. Do you have any advice for family members who have other family members, a sister, a brother, a cousin, mom, who has the same skin conditions as you or as Reggie, like how to talk to them, but not in a way where it's like you have to talk to this person with kid gloves, because that's patronizing, but how to handle that situation, that those things actually really matter, especially from family.
Yeah, to be honest, what they really need to do is ask the person if they okay. And ask them more than once. Just because they say okay the first time, that doesn't really mean that's actually how they feel. Their body language will speak. So I felt like vitiligo is it's a struggle with your self-esteem and your mind, because you always feel like somebody's looking at you, whether they are, whether they're not. So as far as with the family members, it needs to be love. It needs to be love, because the way the people that I see now, that's even kids that have vitiligo, they are so different from how I was. They are outgoing. They motivate me. So it's a big difference in the vitiligo world now. There's so much knowledge out there now that people are actually seeing a lot of it everywhere. Yeah. Because I said even kids are different too, Brittany. I remember back in the day when I used to see little kids and they'd be with their parents, they used to go either behind their leg or, try to avoid me. But the kids now, they'll come up and just touch my skin. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Is that how you feel?
Yeah.
But I don't understand. Everybody always think that my skin is supposed to feel different. It's still just skin. I just lose my color.
Right. And that's a very important point to make, because I think growing up, I mean, I didn't see that exposure to people with vitiligo or albinism, but now, you see like Winnie Harlow, you see these models, you see the representation, and I think it's so beautiful. Like you said, and representation matters, because these kids are growing up not thinking anything's wrong, and nothing is wrong with them. But I love that they know nothing's wrong. So that's powerful. Dominique, I have a question for you. You talked about identifying as Black and also being raised by a white mother, and additionally talked about supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. But then I guess in certain spaces you would hear people talking about how they didn't like white people or F white people that you said in the film. And oftentimes we hear the struggle of biracial people being accepted as white and Black, and that you almost feel like you have to choose a side, that whatever you choose, you feel that you can't win. So in the film, you talked about getting used to these situations, that, oh, this is something I get used to. I don't know if that was something that you got used to in your childhood, but how do you deal with those situations now that you are older?
I would say with now, it's like, man, how the times have changed just in our like generation, in our lifetimes. Like with Denise's case, is much different compared to when I was a child. Like now it's more, I would say what I'm getting is out of curiosity. I go out and someone's like, you know, what are you? And I explain that to them. It's like cool, keep it moving. I feel like from the perspective, I don't know if it's because I've grown or, like I said, got used to it. But as a kid, it's like if, you know, things like half breed or mud or something. And like, I didn't really know how to approach that. As an adult, I don't know if it's just because, you know, you age with life experience and things kind of bounce off of you more the older you get. If it's a combination of that or just realizing, you know, yeah, I am this, and I actually have a question like later on when you're finished, kind of based on that, basically educating, you know, people like, hey, not all, you know, biracial mixed people look like this or talk like this. I think that might have answered the question.
Yeah. There is no wrong answers here. That was perfect.
Cool.
Farai, question for you. You mentioned that, which I found is parallels in, you know, with American culture, Black American culture. You talked about living in the United States, that it's almost the sense that you have to prove yourself, your Blackness to Black Americans to fit in. But then you talked about in Zimbabwe that just being Black, being born Black, you are. Like there's no proving yourself. So my question is, what is the difference between the Black communities in these different countries? Do you see that in one country, the Black community gets along more and they're more together? Do you see in one country it's more divided and hostile? Or is it a little bit of both? Like, what's your take on that?
So if you look at the Black community in Zimbabwe, it's basically, I mean, if you're Black, literally you're Black, you know. There's no division of like, you know, you're from there, you're from that. Even if you're from a different country, which is not Zimbabwe, if you're from, like, let's say, for example, you're from South Africa, Botswana, Kenya, or anywhere else within Africa, if you are in the country, you are basically, the only thing that differs you is maybe your language or how you speak. But other than that, you are Black and you are one of us, you know. Mm-hmm. And now when I moved over here, what I end up realizing, or what I end up seeing sometimes, or what I end up getting exposed to at certain times, that you start seeing that, you start getting different type of classes, you know, and because of that, answering your questions, that you start seeing that even among us ourselves, we have that division, you know, and which to me is quite sad, you know. End of the day, it's like, you know, we're supposed to be one people, we're supposed to be coming, you know, together. You know, for example, like one of the greatest movements that I've ever seen is Black Lives Matter, you know, because that's a movement that only did not just touch here in the United States, but it actually went worldwide. You know, that to me, that's how we're supposed to be. It does not matter where you come from. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the area. You know, it's kind of like if you live Indianapolis or if you live Indiana, you go to a different state, you know, even if you're Black over there, you know, for example, like as close as it's Chicago, you know, when you get over there, you can see the difference and stuff like that. And people are looking at you, even like people that are Black as well, they'll be looking at you differently. Like, we know you don't belong here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that to me is quite very, very sad. Answering your question, like, I think the main difference that when you're in a setting, like in an African setting where everybody's predominantly Black, and you didn't have like more of Caucasian people and stuff like that, you all see each other as equal. You all see each other as one, you know. Then when you come over to a place that now you're blending different people from different places, although they're all Black, you know, they start segregating themselves. I've heard some African American going like, yeah, Africans don't like us and stuff like that, so we don't deal with them. Then you hear the same thing from Africans as well, you know, going like, yeah, African Americans don't like us, so, you know, we don't deal with them. And I'm in the middle going like, we are one, you know what I mean? Yeah. And if you all knew from both sides, you know, how you are separating each other instead of actually coming together. So,
yeah. Do any of you have questions for your fellow castmates, friends?
Yes. I want to ask Fry, as far as actually Americans that do actually go over to Zimbabwe, how do they treat them? Are they welcomed over there?
Right. So the shortest answer to your question is yes. The way that I can make it, like to, I don't know, to help you understand. Have you ever been down south?
A long, long time ago. I was a kid.
So you hear something called like the Southern welcome or something like that, you know, that everybody's friendly, everybody's just going to embrace you, even if they don't know you, they'll make you a part of them. Okay. Now that is embedded to, like, you know, for if you're like, that's a lot of African countries, but I can specifically speak for Zimbabwe because that's where I'm from. But we grow up in an environment that no matter who you are, as long as you're gonna come to us, we're gonna open our arms to you and stuff like that. We're gonna welcome you, and, you know, we'll show you love and stuff like that. You know, to the point that, you know, in my country, literally, I know even up to now, it's quite funny, up to now, even on Facebook and stuff like that, I'm seeing my neighbors and stuff like that, because I know all of my neighbors. I literally can stand on my fence every morning going like, hey, you know, if you think about Eddie Murphy in Coming to America, you know, good morning, my neighbors, you know, that type of stuff. I can literally do that, and they will respond like, hey, how you doing? You know, that's one of the hardest things that I had to face when I came here, you know, that I really didn't know my neighbors, you know, and even where I live right now, it's a pretty nice neighborhood and stuff like that. There are some people that are open, but again, it's quite difficult to know all my neighbors, because some are just, you know, like, okay, we're neighbors, but we don't talk like that and stuff like that. And that's still something that I'm still getting adjusted to and getting used to, even after all these years that I've been over here, because, you know, that was pretty much kind of like, you know, installed in me when I was young. So I don't know, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. I got one more question for you.
Yes. Go ahead.
Did you see people over there with my skin condition?
Yes, I did.
How were they treated over there? Because I do interact with a lot of them as far as on the internet, and a lot of them do say that they're not treated good, I guess because a lot of people don't have enough knowledge over there.
Right. And that's what I was gonna, you know, touch on. I think, like, and you kind of mentioned it even over here when you were talking about the difference between the generations that are there now, you know, that when you were growing up, you know, it was totally different, you know, from what you're seeing right now, that, like, you know, the generation that's there now, it's becoming more accepting and stuff like that. And I think all that, mainly it has to do with knowledge. And people see, because in our country, you know, we've got like a lot of things that, like, you know, if something is not understood, then it's linked to maybe spirits or, you know, this and that and stuff like that, you know what I mean? So people become afraid of it. Now, with more knowledge that's actually going out now, you know, if people are getting educated about, you know, different medical conditions and stuff like that, different, you know, things, even just in the medical field, then it becomes more pretty much acceptable, and like people will, you know. So I'll say that right now we're still in a transitioning process of people. Some people are becoming more aware or woke, right? And some people are still pretty much stuck in the ways like, hey, if I don't know this, then hey, I'm not going to interact with that individual. I don't know what's going on with them, But some people are like, oh, well, guess what? I understand this, or like, somebody told me about this, or, that's part of why, even like when I was talking about why, when I saw this video, like it really touched me, this film, it really touched me, is because, this is what's going out, we are able to, talk the stories, say these stories and like explain from our side, like, hey, guess what? When you see me like this, I am just like you. And I even liked the comment that you just made not too long ago, like, hey, guess what? When people see me, they think that like maybe my skin texture is different, stuff like that, but it's just skin, that might be the key, or that might be just what somebody just needs to know and understand, that, hey, guess what? I'm just like you, So I think the more that information is spread, the more that knowledge is like spread around, then people will be more accepting. But right now, I'll say that, like you said, yes, it's still kind of like, I'll say half enough, some are accepting, totally not. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions for anyone?
Yeah, I got one. For instance, like I had a white coworker in the past. We worked probably like 6 months, like several months together, and this dude did not even know I was mixed. So he started asking questions, and it was a pretty cool interaction because he seemed genuinely curious. It wasn't like in a judgmental way. So I just let him know, yeah, like this is how it works. Like he was like really, I'm not gonna say ignorant. He just wasn't educated on like the like biracial being a thing. He literally just had his view, oh, it was just this or that. And to bring that awareness to him, that's just one person, let alone, if he tells his friend that wasn't educated, and it spreads that awareness. So I guess something like, if you remember an instance, and this is to any and everybody, like where you had the opportunity to like educate, bring some knowledge to someone, it can be something simple like, yeah, this is it. And they were just like, okay, or it can be in depth, but yeah.
I have a lot of them. I'm just trying to figure out which one.
Yeah,
I'll just go with like what's happening right now. Currently, I realized that when I was doing Times of Black Lives Matter, I set out to do, I guess, one-on-one type interactions with white people who are curious about Black oppression and white privilege, because my town's just so sheltered and have this knack to want to learn, but just so sheltered about racism. And at first, everything's fine because I grew up in a white community. So I was very used to I guess I had a lot of white tolerance. I hope that doesn't come off bad, but like white tolerance to like just answering questions that white people had about me, about being Black, whatever. But doing Black Lives Matter, answering those questions, that taking my energy, and then seeing Black people being killed, time in, time out, like it took a toll on me, and I lost the patience to tell people things. Now, 3 years later, and then doing grad school and learning so much when I was, at NYU in New York, I realized that journalism is this type of activism that I need to do to connecting with people with interviews and reporting was like was the best parts of journalism for me. Part of my program was criticism. So I had to critique things and objectively look at stuff. And then I realized that I was starting to objectively look at people that way as well. I guess right now with this podcast, I'm utilizing what you just asked. Like this platform is for that. It's not just like, okay, I'm Black and I'm going to talk about being Black. Like my last podcast I did with my friend, he's my friend and he's 60 years old, whatever. But, and he's an engineer. And I was like, this is a no holds bar. Like, ask me the questions you want to know, because some other white person is thinking these questions and they're too afraid to ask it. And I'll just be the answer, not to say I can be the answer for all Black people, but general questions about oppression, you know, I can answer. So this podcast is that, and I just take more opportunities now when I'm reached out to, when people are like, oh, can you talk on my podcast? Or can you talk here? Before I was like, I don't know, that takes too much energy. Now I just say yes. I just say yes because I'm like, these platforms, I will never reach these people. They'll never search for Brittany King. Like, I'm not in their radar. But if I go to them and I say things, there's been so many people that are like conservative, right-winged, you could say, that have reached out to me personally and was like, you know, I clicked on the YouTube because this person I watch regularly, I saw you and it said Black Lives Matter. And I was ready to like comment something. And they're like, you really changed my perspective on the movement, on the plight that your community faces. He's like, there's so many people who are like, I don't 100% agree with you, but I respect you. I respect where your community is coming from now, because I just was ignorant to it. So stuff like that, I'm more ready just to say, yes, I'm going to just talk.
Powerful.
So yeah, that was long and winded.
No, thank you. I love that.
The edited now.
That was
powerful. I think I will say I've been getting it more so now because of this documentary, which I guess means it's doing the intended goal. But because I think the only time I remember discussing anything like this was like back in college. I worked like on campus, and all of my other coworkers were white because I went to a predominantly white institution. And so it was me and one other girl that was Black. And one day, me and the other girl that was Black were talking about colorism, because she came to me with like some YouTube video that was like talking about colorism. And so, you know, obviously we both were familiar with that. And so we were talking about it. And then one of the other girls who was white came in and was like, oh my God, like that's a thing. Like there's some sort of like weird division between Black people just because of your skin tone. And so I remember having that conversation then, but I don't think I've had any more up until now, which I think is partially because of this film and then partially just because of like the state of the world at this moment where everybody's talking about race. So I have had this conversation over and over and over again, a lot this year, some of which people are accepting, and then others people are like, no. So like, for instance, which is kind of funny, Brittany, there's like this lady that I know who is white, who
hated me.
Originally from Columbus, born and raised there, but now lives in Indianapolis, and like was saying like, oh no, that's not true. Like that's not how people act in Columbus. And it's like, well, that is Brittany's experience. And like her being Black and you being white, like you can't really tell her what her.
I have to say, that's pretty much the essence of why.
Yeah.
What I just said.
Yeah. She's like, I just can't believe that because that's not how I was treated in Columbus. And it's like, yeah, but you're not Black, so you wouldn't get
I'll be back.
Exactly.
So it's like instances like that where it's like, okay, whatever. But then I have conversations where people actually genuinely want to learn more and know more and look into it after that. Like I've had a guy reach out to me and say, he watched the film, guy I don't know. I guess he watched it in one of the festivals and he was like, oh, I was so touched by like Denise and her story. And he showed it to his daughter who's in high school and then came back and said his daughter is now like researching vitiligo to learn more because she had never seen anybody with vitiligo before. Wow. So it's, yeah, I've had those conversations a lot more now, which is good though. So
that's awesome. Black Unscripted, changing the world.
Yeah. Of course. And I think you know, it's pretty much a double-edged sword. You know, especially for me, I'll say that like I said earlier on, I started learning, I started becoming more aware to some of the things that were even happening around me that I would just like pretty much ignore on a daily basis. I'm like, yeah, that is that, but now I'm opening up more of my eyes, I'm opening up my ears and stuff like that. So I'm getting to know more, not only about the world around me, but also about myself. And also it's opened up a door for me to be able to kind of like take a glance of how other individuals also even like look at me, so at the same time, now it gives me an opportunity, a platform that every time, like what other individuals have already said, that, for example, when I'm asked the question and stuff like that, because, one of the questions that always comes to me, like even at work and stuff like that, oh yeah, so where you from, then, you tell somebody like, oh, I'm from Zimbabwe. Oh, okay, well, welcome here. And like, back in the day, like, in my head, I'm like, I've been here for a long time, and like, it's not that I'm just fresh from here and like, but, I had to learn to put all that stuff aside and go like, okay, if I become defensive when somebody gives me a comment or tells me something, I have to understand that they're coming from a place that maybe all they've known their whole lives is that, and it is my responsibility, I feel like it's my duty that I'm supposed to be able to educate them,
I tell you what, Brittany, how did you deal? I'm pretty sure you had to deal with it. How did you react when they asked you for wanted to touch your hair?
I literally had, this is you guys get the exclusive, but this was in part 2 of this interview I just did with my friend, that's the white engineer. He asked me this. I don't even know if we recorded this, but he just asked me about, he's like, yeah, I didn't really know about like all the stuff you guys dealt with. Like, I didn't know that you had to talk with your parents about how to act when you interact with the police. I didn't know this. He's like, I didn't even know that Black women had issues with people touching their hair. And I'm like, that's a thing. And it's funny because when I was little, I would say like in elementary school, that was a thing that happened a lot. But when you are that age, 1, you're confused. 2, you know something's weird because it's like you're touching my body. 1, you're just touching my body. That's just it right there. But as I got older and realized what it meant to be Black, I stopped doing that. I stopped allowing people to touch my hair. I'm like, if you want, like, you can touch my hair if you asked, and if I feel like you're not touching my hair as if I'm a pet, as if I'm a zoo animal. But if it's like, oh, girl, I like your hair, it's like, okay. But I had an interesting interaction at my last writing position in Columbus before I moved to New York. And this lady, I had my, fresh braids, how it is, you're feeling yourself, you're like, yes, slay. And my whole office is mostly white. This lady that sits behind me, I worked with her about 2 years, so I knew her really well. And she's 75. And she came behind me and she touched my braids. And I kind of looked because I'm like, who, like, I wasn't like, yo, let's go. But I was just kind of like, who is this? And she was like, oh, like, I just love your hair. Can I touch it? Can I touch it? And I had a split second where I could have been like, don't touch me. Or I could have been like, this woman is not trying to be racist. She really is just, curious. She just wants to feel I'm like, what do I do? And I let her touch my hair. Don't log off the Zoom, I know. But I mean, I guess it's situational. You have to know someone's intent. Like my best friends that are white, yeah, they touch my hair. I don't care. But I don't strangers coming up to me. Would you go up to a stranger of any color and just touch their body without consent? No. But that is a good question. Why is it that with us, specifically Black women, people feel like they can? I just think as a person, no one should touch anyone without asking, period.
I was thinking if you do have a time that you had like a first interaction with someone in like our cast, our group here, and like how you approach that. Like, did you learn something? So like I'll lead off with like my first direct exposure to vitiligo. It was in, I want to say like 7th or 8th grade. The middle school I went, man, kids were bad as hell. Oh, can I cuss? Is it cool? I'm gonna be like
everything goes here at the Black Unscripted behind the scenes.
Yeah, but yeah, they were like bad as hell there. So anyway, this dude, I want to say his name was Mitch, and he didn't like, he was a type. I wish I could have asked, like, maybe if I met him at a later time, but you know, he wouldn't have like went to depth. But I wish I could have asked, you know, like because he was more on the like bullying side, I would say. I wasn't with him when he was like doing that. Like, I don't condone that or anything, but I didn't know, you know, bullies have their reasons in general. I didn't know if that might have been something, you know, additional to that. So I wish I could like see about that, but hope Mitch is doing well now. And then my other awareness and like with Denise, you know, the doll situation and her interactions now, and the energy that comes with it compared to when we were kids, because we're all, I think, kind of in the same age group. So it's just like it's really interesting and like hopeful, the path, this transition we're going on. But yeah, that's just like a couple examples of mine. So like, I guess some interactions that you had, like whether it was the first time or like some that stood out. Did you get a chance to ask questions? Did you like learn something when you went home that day or something like that?
Actually, in my case, I had a best friend. I still talk to her. Her name is Dee Dee, and she was mixed. And I did want to do her hair. she had a lot of hair, but she would never let nobody touch it. She wouldn't comb her hair. Actually, she was one of the ones that just put it in the ball, in a ponytail. Her hair is real long, but ain't combed through it. So yeah. I remember when she actually got her first perm. So it was different, but she actually, if you looked at her, you wouldn't know that she was mixed though. So she came back, you know, on the darker. She was still bright, but you can tell that she was actually, you couldn't tell that she was mixed. So, and then far as being from another country, oh, I love you guys. I love you. I love you. I got to meet a whole lot of them where I used to work. Gene, oh, he's hilarious. I loved him because he's never like really watched movies as far as over here in America. And where I used to work at, we actually rode the bus all together. So that weekend, he went and watched the movie. And soon when he got on the bus, he said, "What up, my nigga?" I couldn't do nothing but laugh because he said he had learned it off the video, but he kept on doing it. And I said, Gene, you can't just do that to everybody. I said, everybody's not going to be, this is cool. And another thing that I did like is that when we sat at the table and started eating, they would take, if they had a piece of bread, they don't have slices of bread, it was just a whole loaf. And they pass it around for everybody to get a piece. And, you know, that was unusual for me. And then if somebody didn't have food, they all actually really share with each other, pass it around and everybody eat. And they included me as well. So I love them. I love them. I do. I love everybody.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, something that was interesting with Farai's storyline was I have a lot of friends that are from different parts of Africa. My brother-in-law, he's from Nairobi. I have one of my best friends, she's from Kenya. I mean, I have a lot of friends from Africa. But one thing that they told me, and very candid about, was how their parents told them not to interact with Black Americans. And that by proxy, you will be seen like them. Like you probably will be considered a Black American, maybe, but if you're far away from them, you won't be as stigmatized. But the one thing that was interesting with your story was how you talked about you were trying to fit in with the Black culture. And I just thought that was interesting because I'm not sure if my other friends tried to fit in. I think what happened with them is they took their parents' advice and kind of stayed away from Black Americans. But then they told me it wasn't until I was mistreated like a Black American is when I knew my parents were wrong about Black Americans. And that the stereotypes that we're fed is not real. Like they're just stereotypes. So I just thought it was interesting to hear your side trying to fit into a culture versus trying to stay away from it. So I thought that was really, really interesting.
So, you know, one of the things that kind of saved me is that I'm a curious individual. You know, I like to know stuff. I like to understand stuff before I can even comment or say something. So even if I'm in a group of people and stuff like that, most of them I'm going to sit back, listen, and like, you know, pretty much kind of like, you know, understand like, you know, every individual in that group, then comment and stuff like that. So I think that saved me quite a bit, you know, by end up getting to know somebody or like, you know, getting educated with somebody, knowing somebody's story and stuff like that tells you a lot, you know. And I've seen some individuals that like, you know, like in Brittany's case that, you know, you're a Black individual, but you were raised or like, you know, you were raised in a pretty much predominantly white neighborhood or like white area, stuff like that. You know, you come out differently, you know what I mean? It's not the typical, like, you know, somebody who was raised like in a different part, like, you know, where they're predominantly Black people and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, the way that you talk and stuff like that, you know, it's totally different, you know. But again, when like one of my first interactions, I'll be honest, I met somebody like you, and my first thing that came in my head was like, yeah, they just trying to be Miss Goody Tissue. You know what I mean?
Are you talking about
me? Yeah. No, not you.
Oh, I know.
You know, somebody kind of like the same background with you, yeah. You know. Then I had to be like, okay, wait a minute. Instead of me just judging, let me try to find out, you know, like why they're different from, like, you know, the way that they talk and stuff like that. Then you get to understand somebody's story. Then you get to realize that, oh, okay, this is what's happening. That's why. So one of the things that, you know, those experiences taught me, and this film was a great reminder of that. You know, Black Unscripted was a great reminder of that. Like, you know, number one, do not judge a book by its cover, you know. And also, number two, meet everybody on the level, you know, meet them where they are and start from there. You know, don't come in a conversation with assumptions and stuff like that. And that's one of the things that kills me. You know, you were talking about the same thing, because I'll tell you this, it's in two parts. When we come from Africa, here's our problem. The main problem that happens, like, you know, where we get our information. And most of the time where we get our information is movies. That's what we're exposed to, you know. So when somebody comes in the bus going like, hey, what up, my niggas?
Can I just ask what type of movies?
Sorry?
What's the type of movies that you guys watch that you're like, oh, these are what they're like?
Honestly, to be honest with you, if you actually really look down like any type of movie, it's like the way that it portrays, like, for example, Black people in movies and stuff like that. In most movies, you're going to see they're just like pretty much kind of like hood-like and stuff like that, the way they talk, you know. And like those are the movies that get usually popular and more voice, you know. And that's the ones that pretty much kind of make it, like movies like Friday or like, you know, and stuff like that. That those are the ones that make it, you know, to places like Africa, you know. So when we see that, because I'll tell you this, basically, before I came here, I thought that by the time I come here, I'm going to come in a whole hood, you know, people wearing just wife beaters and stuff like that. And like, you know, talking like this and stuff like that. That's what I expected, you know. So you can imagine my shock coming in. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, something's missing here. Where's the barber shop here? You know, you know, so, you know, you've got, you know, those, you know, so you get in like, and again, that's a problem. Like, you know, when our parents see that, to them, you know, you can't fault them because that's the information that they got. To them, that's the best, you know, like, you know, view of America that they get to see. So when they're instructing their children and stuff like that, hey, guess what? When you get there, please, 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 you know, all they do is like, you know, drag their pants and stuff like that. They are no good and stuff like that. They're all in gangs. They're all selling weed or smoking weed and stuff. You know, most of them, they end up getting in prostitution and stuff. That's what you see on movies and stuff like that, you know, so that's what you end up getting, you know what I mean? So it becomes, you know, you kind of like your view. So that's, again, for me, that's why even this was a reminder, like, hey, listen, when you meet everybody, you meet them on the level. You don't come in with any judgments and stuff like that. You know, to be happy with where I'm at and who I am and be able to thrive with that and not try to conform myself to fit a certain criteria that individuals tell me that I'm supposed to fit. Now, that was long-winded, so I'll give it back to you.
Yeah.
It's all good.
We're really into this because I had no idea. Do you think colorism is one getting better in our community, as in we are not uplifting those type of things, that type of discrimination against one color versus the other, because we're talking about it so much? I feel like we're talking about it more in the last decade and last 5 years than I've ever experienced when I was growing up. Also, what do you think perpetuates colorism? I have my own idea, but what do you think makes colorism stay a system of power in our community?
Need a sec.
Can I just say what I think? It's hip hop culture. I've studied colorism in my undergrad and through books, through research. And one thing that always circles back is perpetuation through songs, through hip hop, glorifying and putting certain types of women in videos, like stuff as little as that, like saying this is the prize to be had, this is the thing to be. But women, though, not really necessarily light-skinned men, but women, which, I mean, that's, you know, an origin from slavery, that light-skinned women were more delicate, beautiful, you know, domesticated, whatever. And then also, which doesn't really get talked about, those stereotypes or those traits, so to speak, were put on the men as well, which is why they're in the house with the women. But then in the field, dark-skinned men were seen as strong and, you know, able to do all the labor, and, you know, and that's the kind of the same similarities you see now, like black dark men are seen as strong and this, but then dually dark-skinned women are seen as masculine, strong, and this. So my thing is, I mean, I love hip hop. Don't get me wrong. I love hip hop. I don't know what's going on right now with like the young kids. Don't get it. I'm 90s, like NWA, whatever. But what do you think it is? Do you think it's something as simple as music, or is it more ingrained, or is it just coming from a lot of areas?
So I would say, I think, okay, so part one of your question. I think it's getting better? I think, like you said, it's getting talked about more, but I still see it all the time, like on my Facebook timeline, on Instagram, in people's conversations, when I go to work and there's like Black women together and they're talking, and it's like, okay, guys, like, can we please, like, get rid of this? Like, can we not keep doing it? So I think that, of course, is being talked about more, which is probably step one to trying to make it better. And then I think also like, yeah, hip hop and stuff perpetuates it, but I also think it's so ingrained in everybody now that it's almost like something people do subconsciously. Like, I don't think people even really think about the fact that what they're saying like promotes colorism, because it's just how we've thought and what we've heard forever. So I almost think it's just more ingrained in just society and everybody's thinking that keeps it around. And I don't know, like, so do you think that we'll ever like rid our thinking and stuff of colorism? Because I don't know if that's like, I don't think that'll ever happen, because it's just so
sadly
for me
there.
Sadly,
so for me,
were you gonna say something? I'll make it really quick. Sadly, I see colorism similar to racism. Well, it is. I mean, it's
right.
Racism, discrimination within our race. Okay, so I know right now with the movement going on, not necessarily even Black Lives Matter, just like the movement of trying to be a post-racial world. I don't, and the goal trying to like end racism, for me, racism is never going to end. I mean, the best we can do is have policies, bills, and laws to protect Black people from being physically harmed or affected by the systems of racism, but racism is going to be there. I see racism like murder. You shouldn't do it, but people will do it. Just have laws against it. Outlaw it.
Right.
I see colorism in the same way. It's like, we shouldn't do it, but I feel like it's so ingrained. And I also feel like it's sadly something that not we maybe in this group, but I'll just say we collectively as Black community, we kind of know that we're still seen as second class in America, and having colorism is our type of way of having a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're not going to be powerful, but at least whoever in our group, there's a chance to strive for power. And that you can either be the thing, the light-skinned woman or whatever, or you can attain the thing, be the Black man that gets this.
Right.
So it's like sadly, like weirdly, something we don't like, but then again, there's a reward in it. It's like if you're able to attain it or be it, you get privilege. It's not privilege, white privilege, but there is a privilege with it. So,
I think one of the most frustrating things as well is like, this obviously, like you said, it's like racism. It derives from slavery and all of that. So it's like this very weird thing of like, it is put on us by non-Black people, by white people, and then we also perpetuate it within our own community. And it just like makes no sense to me, because it's like, why are we adopting this and then using it within our own community to cause more division and like more of those stereotypes that we try to fight against? Like, I don't know. It's just
So I'm gonna first of all answer Brittany's question. I think that basically the whole issue of colorism, is it getting better? Honestly, I don't think it is. Sad to say, I don't think it is. Pretty much kind of like to the likes of racism, because it is a form of racism. It's people are just getting better at hiding it. So to say, is it being spoke more about nowadays? Yes, it is. And does that need to continue to happen? Yes, it does need to continue to happen, in my opinion. One of the things that we have to start changing is our mentality, like our perspective on how we view ourselves, how we look at things, how we think about things, And again, it's okay to try to teach, the older generation or the younger generation right now, but our best goal to be able to start making changes and stuff like that, like what Denise said, like kind of piggybacking on Denise's experience of like, when I was growing up, it didn't happen, but now the kids like, are starting to look at it a little bit different. One of the ways that we can change this is start educating the younger ones right now. This generation that is coming up right now, that guess what? Racism is not okay. Differentiating ourselves with color and stuff like that is not okay.
But yeah, as far as being a musician, definitely I understand that perspective media having a impact, even if it's subconsciously. People, there's songs that play repetitively. There's, visuals that come with that. And whether or not we know it, it's like kind of getting wired in. With that being said, I would say with kind of like what Farai said, just educating, there's generational where it's passed down, that concept of racism, of hate, that is literally, learned. You'll see, these kids of different backgrounds and cultures playing, they got common interests. It's only when it's instilled upon them that they will develop that, that newfound, that hate. So that goes into, I'm trying to think how the question is. I think I'm going backwards or mixing them, but I saw this video. We're in a day and age with media, social media, sharing, all of this stuff is getting across the world in an instant. So I saw this lady, it was a white woman, and she said, I'm going to teach my grandchildren to hate your people, talking to Black people protesting peacefully. And that was a pure, like, textbook way, like, showing how that, transfers to the next generation. I think application, like what Farai said, not if we know it, I mean, that's only half of the battle. It's applying it, it's leading that. So I think that's very important. And I think Britt, you said kind of like, it's kind of like murder in a way. It's like, yeah, it's bad, like, don't do it. I'm neutral on if colorism will be a thing, like 100% solved, because you're still with change in times and days like these. Change it's a double. It can like affect. There's consequences. There's results and everything. Hopefully, the greater part of the change, comes. All of us as human beings, we have these natural instincts to judge. If I see one of you walk into somewhere and you have like a certain wardrobe on, it's a split second that I initially think, oh, they must be upper class. They must be like coming from the gym. They might be chill person. They might be like kind of like snotty or something. But the difference is, do you hold on to that attachment of your views? Do you hold on to that judgment, or do you snap yourself? Do you have that sense of awareness to look past it and view in an objective way, unbiased way, based on that character, that person as an individual? For everyone watching this, the change is today. Like, literally, this is the stuff, like, we read history books, like, in the initial beginnings of slavery, of how, our people have been treated. The 20th century, today, we are like in these times where your decisions are gonna be, dictate like how our next generations will be treated and approached for years to come.
And like you said, just be the change. Like, when I had my moment of awakening to colorism when I was 18, that's when, because I was doing so much research, I just realized it was like my eyes opened up to how pervasive it was in America. And then even with my friends' conversations, just realizing that certain things we used to say, I'm like, dang, I was saying colorist things then. Yeah, it's about educating. And I always try to make it seem as abnormal as possible. Like, if someone says something that's colorist, I don't sweep it under the rug. I ask them why they just said that. If people are like team light skin, team dark skin, or whatever, I'm like, why? Like, what does that serve? Like, just trying to call it out in certain ways, but not trying to finger wag at these people like, I know better than, no. but like just trying to be like, you know what, that like, why don't you realize this is something that's harming our community? Like, let's just talk about this. So that's what I try to do. Does anyone have anything last to say, very brief? Because it's like,
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to make this fast. So I think the same thing that's been echoed over and over again is about how powerful Black Unscripted is, like showing everybody's different perspectives, viewpoints, stories, and things that probably we just didn't even think about because it's so subconscious that I don't think people remember that all of us are human. We all have feelings, and like the things that you say or the reactions that you give people have consequences. So one of the biggest things that I wanted to do with this was, besides getting the message out, was to make sure that I was doing each of you's stories justice in the way that it was told and edited. So this can be like a quick answer because I know we're trying to get off, but do you guys feel like watching the film that your stories were told in the way that you would have liked and that it was like worth it in the end to have gone through this process?
Short answer, heck yeah. Yes, 100%. And that's what was so cool is this film, like what you did, Rachel, I feel like you captured us so well. And like I said, when I met you guys, I felt like I've met you before because just that 17-minute video, like, I'm like, dang, she did that. And you told my storyline perfectly. It all intertwined. Like, it was separate, but there was this bond that we all had. Like, even though we're dealing with Blackness in different ways, we're still dealing with it. And we're still connected because of that. So, yeah, short answer for me, yes. Bravo. Bravo.
My short answer is yeah, pretty much yes. She did a great job, Rachel, and I think you should do a part 2.
I think she should too.
Wow.
You did an awesome job.
Yeah, I like I was gonna say heck yeah, like Rachel. I think when I watched that, like I really saw like, man, you captured it, you know, for me personally as well. Just it's like a fresh breath, like, man, it's out there. And I got to learn from y'all. Like it was just all winning, like just all around. So thank you again, you know, for getting, I think I'll be saying that till the day I die. Like, hey, thank you, Rachel. Remember that time, that thing we did? Thank you. Like,
so we're going to end this right now, but I just want to end this with one word to describe your experience with being on this project. Just one word, each of you.
Put us on the spot like that. To end it.
I know we can say every word, but we can't say one word. That's so funny.
I'll say enlightening.
Rewarding.
Living.
Dang it. I was going to say rewarding too.
I'll say grateful. Like I am right now with us doing the Zoom. I'm so grateful that we did this. So if you have not seen Black Unscripted, I don't know why. If you haven't seen it after seeing this, I don't even know. But I'll have all the links to that, the information below. Everyone's social media, follow everyone here. They're doing awesome work. Tune in next time. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much, guys.
I don't get one.
I'm telling you, Rachel, part 2 to this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Part 2.
I'm for it.